Welcome, everybody. I am Joe Danier, owner of Youngstown Computer, and weekends when we don't have the Youngstown Computer Show, we come down here to beautiful Youngstown Studio in downtown Youngstown, Ohio, and we broadcast an episode of the Joe Danier Show. This week's theme is going to be the villain, and if you listen to our morning broadcast, you're going to be hearing more about the villain throughout the coming mornings. A little explanation here. This is sort of a philosophical approach. A lot of us, when we judge other people, when we go out throughout our day, what we do is we assemble these whole virtuous people and we do these villainous people. And the people that are on your team are all the virtuous ones, and the people who are on the other team, they are all the villains. The problem is that all of us have equal parts villain and equal parts virtue. We're both good and we're bad in equal measure. Now also, we are also genius in equal measure that we are total absolute idiots. And when we have this tribalism and we have these territories, we end up trying to cast bad light on the people that are on the other team, and we cast good light on the people of our team. It's almost like when you go to do a buy a car versus sell a car. So you're in the car dealership and you're selling, you're trading in your car. The salesman looks over your car and they say, "Oh, this will have to be done, and that will have to be done, and man, that's in rough shape, and wow, I can only give you X dollars for it." But the other way around, when they are selling you a car, they are walking around that car just giving you the best features, everything about that car and how wondrous it is. So this approach, this is what sort of defines how we are viewing one another. And it's bad, and it's polarized, and everything is so political that it's really tough to get people on the same side long enough for everybody to cooperate and get along. So the reason that's my theme is that I am putting together a huge push for cooperation. Now, what's tough about that is everybody in the short term is willing to cooperate. When it gets hard to cooperate, that's when people start, dividing things in the sand, those dividing lines in the sand, and start to figuring out, wait, we are way too different to be aligning here. And that's when everybody starts departing the cooperation route. And I've watched this happen time and time again. People I like and people I would otherwise get along with, I watch them go through these cycles of, I want to get along and help everybody, but then the expense gets too great and everybody bails. So this big push for Youngstown, Ohio, if you live here for longer than 30 minutes, you hear the same tired lines over and over and over. We're an underdog town that has great work ethics, but we are sort of marred in a constant state of self-sabotage. And you watch this, and it's the population, it's the political leaders, it's everybody in general that go through these stages of we have really good things happen, and then we shoot ourselves in the leg. And we feel so bad about it that we think, you know what, this is just the armpit of the United States. It's, self-hatred and, that what's to be expected. And then you get this whole generation of kids now who think that you live in an area that attracts the bad. Do you know why it attracts the bad? I'll tell you why it attracts the bad. Well, because we feed off of it. We frenzy off of the negativity. And it's not because, everybody does. Every city, every town in America, we all like the drama. It's just part of our culture now. But the problem is that it takes someone who puts optimistic spins on what's really happening. Okay, so let me give you a little story here to illustrate this a little bit. So a couple of years ago, 2 Decembers ago, I got really mad that I went to the Nutcracker in downtown Youngstown, a performance. And my wife had said that the entire auditorium was less than halfway sold out. And I was mad about that because I didn't hear absolutely anything about the Nutcracker. It wasn't promoted well, and I thought, you know what? The city of Youngstown needs a place where if you want to know what's really going on, if you want to know the events that are going on, you want to know what's going on, they need a place to go to. So I invented the youngstownreport.com, right? I made a website, and I thought, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to take events that are happening around the community, and I want to make sure that everybody who checks on it can have a place to go that has a listing of all, like, the top-tier events that are coming to town. And I'm thinking, okay, well, that satisfies a single column of the site. What about news items that are happening? So that I'm going to go out to all of the news sources, and I'm going to take some articles of things that are happening around town, and that will be the second column of the website. But you know what I found out when I started posting news articles about things that were happening around town? The ratio was about 10 to 1. 10 articles that were, putting the most negative slant on something that happens, the salaciousness, the negativity, the drama. And there was one to every town where it would say there was a charity did something good and whatever. Now, it made me upset because I didn't want to take negative articles on this thing that I was trying to do to help promote the town and then put a bunch of negative articles that made us look like idiots, right? Make it look like we can't get anything right. Make it look like we're, if you give us, you could give us the most polished anything and we will turn it into a big smudgery, right? And so I started writing to the editors of newspapers, and I started suggesting that maybe if they would have written their pieces with a little bit more positive light, I could have done something while helping them promote some of the news story from their organization. And I started getting some responses back. And one of the big ones, this was 2 Christmases ago, and I think there was a church over in Struthers, which is a neighboring town to Youngstown, and a church was putting together Christmas gifts for the disadvantaged. Okay, so they basically had all of their, the people that were part of that church come down and donate gifts, and they were going to wrap them up and they were going to present them for Christmas to less than fortunate kids, right? And so somebody had broken into the facility and they wiped out the presents that were lined up for the kids. And then a couple days later, the parishioners and some anonymous givers and donators, they came to the rescue and replaced all of the gifts. And so I read the article that sort of laid out the story that went along with this, and there was about 6 paragraphs dedicated to the theft and about like a line like right at the end. Maybe it was even smaller type. Maybe it was microscopic that said, oh, and by the way, they real low. Oh, and by the way, somebody came and redonated the gifts. Now, it should have been the other way around. Look at this town, how it bounces back. Some idiot comes along, and they steal all the gifts, and still, our hearts pour out and explode and make sure that the kids have something. So the article could have been skewed the other way, 10-1, positive to negative. You could still include the details. You don't have to put the rose-colored glasses on all the way and just ignore that there was a bad element of this story. But how did we write the article? So I went on this whole binge every morning going through every article that came across that could have been written. Now, the real negative ones that there wasn't a good way to spin it, I left those alone. But there was articles that were definitely written for the most negative parts of our being. And so I wrote these letters to them, and I got some really good feedback. Now, I can't tell if, people changed and they started writing better articles. I'll never know that. Now, were we able to find some, going into the Christmas season that were publishable, were able to be included in the Youngstown Report? Sure. I can't take credit for it, and I don't know that it had an influence it, but that's the kind of steps that you need to take. Is if I didn't tell them, I mean, the public gossipers, the public drama, people are addicted to drama, they're going to, almost beg to have those kinds of stories just so they could feel so terrible about when they're reading the newspaper about how terrible it is, so they could tell their friends they live in a town that is just awful, right? Why would we want to be in that spot? Because that's why when I say we self-sabotage, because we're so addicted to the negative side of it that we take any hint of things that are happening good and we almost make it a little footnote that nobody reads. Now, as I said before, I want our town to have a high cost of living. There's nothing keeping us from being a town that at the top end of the pay scale, that's a high cost of living, there's a wait list for opening a business in the town, that it's really hard to get business licenses because everybody's applying for them. There's a shortage of real estate, and home builders can't put up housing fast enough to be able to accommodate all the people. There's nothing stopping us from being in that way, to making ourselves attractive, right? There's nothing stopping. There's nothing different about us. In fact, we probably have a leg up with the way that we are, where we are situated between different markets that make us very valuable between those two markets. You know what keeps us at that place where we could just say that all markets are better than us and all technologies come to places other than us and we're so terrible and so bad? You know what keeps that from happening? Us, right? And so I don't blame the media for delivering the kind of news that the public is truly attracted to, okay? Because they're not activists. Their job is to sell newspapers and get people to watch. But that doesn't help. That doesn't help us. So what I'm suggesting that we do in this sort of, binging for this cooperation is to get give a reason for the media to write better articles, because when they write better articles, you as readers read deeper into the articles and you tune in and watch, and you are inspired and attracted to good things happening, because then we get to make more good and inspiring things happen. And, there are plenty of people who are willing to stick their neck out for this area and build and expand. But if all of them are sort of like hesitating a little bit because in the minute of weakness or the minute of mistake that they're going to get pounced on by a bunch of people who are no better than them, no virtuous than them, looking for the villain to throw on the top of the burn pile, right? That's sort of like the defensive posture that you take when you're surrounded by that negativity. So I have to go out and I have to convince everybody, the people willing to stick their neck out, to do it, because we're all going to have your back no matter what happens. You do something stupid and make a mistake, we've got your back. You end up coming up on the short end of the stick, we've got your back. You have a moment of weakness, we've got your back. And then when you are strong, right, then you have our back. And when you're weak, you have our back. And if everybody in our community played that game where no matter what, we protected our own and we came through on our own, instead of this whole, hey, we're going to stab you in the back no matter if it's good or bad, and you're going to stab me in the back whether it's good or bad, and then maybe we'll have these little token gestures where we work together, but I'm just planning my next sticking in the back kind of a thing. I'm telling you, I've met with and got to know area celebrities, people in professional sports, professionals and CEOs, and regular public. You know what they all have in common? They're all the freaking same. They're all the same they tell the same off-color jokes. They have the weird, when the camera's not on and you get to a level where you could just have a conversation with them, the conversations are as lowbrow as just anybody else. Okay, so we are all idiots and we are all geniuses. We are all villains and we are all virtuous, because all of these things are peppered in all of our personalities, but it's up to the communities and us to put pressure on it to draw the good out, to draw the genius out. Okay, so and I know you're sitting across from me right now, and I know you're a genius and an idiot at the same time. Do I want to draw the genius out of you so I can hit you with a club, or do I want to draw the idiot out of you so I could hit you with a club, or do you want me to draw the genius out of you so we could put the genius to work? Not draw the genius at you and then point out, oh, he's got some idiot in him, right? Because that's everybody. We just come to that conclusion now that when we draw the good out, the bad's going to come along, and we do our best to help people protect themselves from the bad, right? We always had that mechanism. We knew that, we made that stuff taboo. We made it so that we didn't propel bad behaviors and normalize it in society. So we need to do that. We need to do a little bit of shaming on the bad side. Make sure that it's not an acknowledged thing. Know that it's not the person that is the sinner, right? The person is not the one that's an idiot. Okay, because if we have it all in us, then we're all idiots. We got to come to that conclusion that it's all in all of us. So anyway, I've known all of these people that they're equal parts of this. So we have to know that everybody's those things, and there's no better or there's no worse. You're just either better at staying in the role of sounding more like a virtuous person and sounding more like a genius for longer periods than the other guy. Well, there's some people on the other side that are really good at sounding like an idiot and really sounding like a virtuous as a villain. But they've got equal in them both sides. So anyway, I wanted to underscore that this pounce thing doesn't do us any favors, because when we're like that, the media is just going to feed us what we're asking, and then we look like that's all we're ever about. Crime Town. You think, okay, so you think Youngstown. Okay, we got this big thing with crime. You think crimes were really only happening here? You don't think the same kind of stuff was happening in other cities? But other cities, they didn't, broadcast it with a megaphone and put it in neon lights so everybody could see and pay attention to us. We just got really good at making people pay attention to us for the absolute wrong reasons. Your nephew who comes over and he screams and tears things up so people will pay attention to him. Yeah, that's kind of what it's like. So anyway, so my goals here in the coming months are I'm going to bring people on this program that are in prominence, that are visual, they do public things, and we're going to have conversations about what we could all do to jump on the pile and keep everybody on the straight and narrow. And we're not looking to out someone. Even people that I disagree with are going to be the best conversations, because I can sit, I swear to you, I've done this time and again. I've sat across from someone who I thought that I disagreed with a whole lot because I fought with them all the time. And when I sit in front of them, they don't get all, they don't really want to fight when it's person to person. I don't really want to fight when it's a person to person. We start talking, we find that we've got common ground, and we aren't as angry about one another as we were when we just were planning on fighting one another. And it happens time and again. And there's very few people, I think, that I would sit here and say, you know what, you're lost cause. There's no conversation to be had here. There's no common ground that we can come to, and whatnot. So I'm going to take, from every stripe here, we're going to have every stripe. We're going to have conversations with them, and everybody's going to have some really good ideas, I'm sure, about what we can do about not only getting cooperative spirit moving, but also maintaining it, even when it gets hard, even when you don't want to anymore. Because that's when it usually falls apart, when somebody decides to get defensive, or somebody decides to get selfish, or maybe there wasn't enough in it for them. Then they decide to get selfish, and it's no longer about cooperative. It's all about me. Well, I want to keep it going. I want to keep people thinking of other people first. So over on social media, I posted a set of standards and rules and principles, and these are 13 rules. I'm going to share those throughout the week this week. So if you pay attention to me on Facebook, send me a friend request, Joe Danier, and I'll make sure that I open it up to you so you can see those videos as I go through the mornings here. I'm going to go. We're going to talk more about the villain and the 13 standards as we go through the week. And my goal in the end is to fracture the tribalism and the territory seeking of how like it's your team versus theirs, where Browns versus Steelers and Republicans versus Republicans versus liberals. And, you got these teams where the other team is just so stupid and they don't understand and they don't have any information. That's what we do. And, the other team cheats and your team is noble. That's the kind of stuff. I want to fracture this so that you can be, you could be a part of a tribalism, but that doesn't define you. It's not part of your character. You could join a team and go root for your team, but it's not part of who you are. You don't become stupid or smart because of the group that you are in. I want it to be because of your merits, because of who you are. And if you're going out in the town and you're trying to help other people and you're laying down, truth seeking and you stand for everything that everybody should stand for, no matter what, right? Then that's the team. That's the team that I want to be on, the team that is trying not to be on a team. All right, I think that's all I have for now. We will be back here next weekend. Like I said, we'll be out here throughout the week talking about the villains this week. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to hit me up on any of the social medias here. Until then, we'll see you next week. This has been The Joe Show.